Hello everyone, and I want to welcome you to this YouTube series for my book, The Snake and the Rose. My name is Abby Matthies, and I will be making this YouTube series to read my book. And this is based off of my TikTok series, Darius and Abby. So if you would like to check that out, you can find me on TikTok at Blue Squishy. And if you haven't seen the summary for this book yet, I would go and look it up on my YouTube channel and watch that first and then come back. So, without further ado, here we go.
I open my eyes to a pitch black room. No lights, no sounds, just pure blackness. The kind of blackness that blinds you from seeing your own hand inches away from your face. I start feeling paranoid from being in the dark. I felt like I was not alone, and something dangerous was stuck in here with me. I called out into the dark abyss. Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? After a moment of no reply, a spotlight appeared faintly in the distance. I start walking towards it. As I begin to step closer, I see two shadowy figures confronting each other. The first figure stood tall and broad, while the other had its head tilted towards the ground, with its hands hugging its chest. As I came upon the edge of the light, I stopped and examined each of them closely. Both of the figures had no defined features. They almost looked like full mannequins meticulously placed the way they were. The first figure seemed to be holding some sort of paper with writing on it. I tried to read the words that were displayed, but it was too blurry to make out. I glanced at the other figure to find it holding something against its chest. Upon further examination, it looked to be a manila folder, like the ones you would see in a filing cabinet of a doctor's office. I took a step back to see the two as a whole. As I took in that sight, my brain was trying to predict the purpose of the two interacting with each other. As that thought stirred in my head, the figures started to change. They were gaining human-like features. The first turned into a man that had an unusually slender stature. His hair was slicked back and appeared shiny because of all the grease he used. A patterned button-up navy blue shirt emerged, along with a gray-blue vest and black formal pants. His chin shifted outward, displaying a strong jawline. As the figure kept changing, it started to form a crooked smile, and his eyes turned into a piercing yellowish green. I followed his line of sight as it was glaring at the second figure. It too was changing into a man like the first, except the figure was developing different features. He was more muscular, had black hair like the other, but it was only slightly slicked back. There appeared to be only enough grease to hold the comb-over hairstyle that he had. A red button-up shirt started to appear along with a matching black vest and pants. I started to look at his face as it began to form a jawline. A pair of glasses emerged along with a frown and a pair of gloomy blue eyes. While gazing at these changes, I felt this strange feeling of déjà vu. This man that was suddenly standing in front of me seemed so familiar. It was almost like I had seen him before, but I couldn't have, right? Then, I heard the first man starting to speak. I can visibly see all your hard work going towards this one patient. It's almost to the point where you're becoming obsessed with it, he said while trying to hide his cocky tone.
Well, of course I'm obsessed with it. This patient is my only kid, my only offspring. You can't tell me you wouldn't do the same if you were in my position,
said the second man, looking up at the first. Of course I will. We may share the same profession as doctors. However, we don't share the same aspect of having children with cancer. The second man held out the manila folder in front of him and looked at it. As he gazed upon it, I seen his eyeball tick to the left as he read the title on the folder. He paused for a moment, and within an instant, he pulled it back against his chest, hugging it for dear life. I could only assume that that folder was the hospital file for his child. I do have sympathy for you and your situation, so I'm here to make you an offer.
Make me an offer? What do you think this is? This is my child's life, not an exchange of money. I have nothing to offer you. I just want my child to have an ordinary life.
The second man exclaimed, raising his voice, showing his anger. I know this is your child's life, and you want to ensure that they will live a long and happy one. No parent wants to see their child die before them. A silence rose between the two. I could sense the tension between them. I could feel the anger overflowing from the second man. A stronger wave of deja vu washed over me. It seemed as though I was somehow connected with him on the same level, but that was impossible. He was alive, and I was dead.
What's your offer?
Said the second man, ending the silence. The first man proceeded to give him the piece of paper he had in his hand. I glance at it and catch a few words that were bolded in blue ink. Cure, cancer, transfer, and work. The second man looked at the paper while the other spoke. I will cure your child of cancer, guaranteed. They will live their life to the fullest. Your family will watch your kid grow up, graduate, fall in love, have kids, and more. The only thing I ask in exchange is yourself. The second man glared up in suspicion and confusion.
Myself? What is that supposed to mean?
It means you come and work for me. Leave this hospital and transfer to mine. I have been looking for a man that is as headstrong and determined as you. You are exactly what my hospital needs.
Whoa. Wait a minute here.
The second man protested.
I can't just sign a contract with a person I don't even know. Who are you? Which hospital do you own? How is your staff? How do you know if I will fit in with the rest of them?
Doesn't really matter. You want to help your kid, right? I just told you that I could cure their cancer, no questions asked. Plus, you'll get to know the staff along the way. I know you'll fit right in. I think this is a pretty reasonable offer. A new workplace for a healthy offspring? Seems like a great deal to me. Another silence rose as the second man stared at the contract, trying to understand what the other just said. The first man reached into his pocket and pulled out a pen. So, do we have a deal? He said, holding the pen out to the other. At that moment, I started to get a repulsive feeling in the pit of my stomach. This scene seemed too familiar, almost like I could relate to what was happening, but I couldn't figure out why. The second man grabbed the pen and took the cap off. It was an old-style fountain pen that was ready to be used. I looked at the man's face. I could see how hesitant he was to sign the contract, but I couldn't see why he wouldn't. It was a guaranteed fix for his kid. I would have signed it myself. As the man slowly drifted the pen closer to the signature line, the repulsive feeling in my stomach grew. I looked back to the first man, and his face had an evil smirk on it. An evil smirk that I knew so well. That face of deceit that was burned into my memory long ago. At the sight of that, I suddenly became aware of what was going on between the two. Panic rose within me as I shouted, "Wait! No! Stop! It's a trap!" I started to move my legs to walk towards them. As I was doing so, I felt a sudden restraint that was keeping them from moving. I looked back to see that my legs were chained to the floor, unable to move any further. I looked back to see the second man still edging towards the contract with the pen. I shout again, "He is lying!" I pointed at the slender man when instantly I became shackled by my wrists. Now I was chained to the spot. I frantically turned my head back at the two men. The second man had the pen inches away from the line while the other man's eyes started to glow. "Can't you hear me? He is—" And as quick as a snap, another chain shot out of the ground, shackling my neck. I tried to grab it, but the chains holding my wrists were too short to reach it. It then forced me down to the ground until I was stuck on my hands and knees. I looked back up to see that the second man had finished signing the contract. "No!" I screamed. It was too late. I was too late. The second man gave the signed contract back. We both started to stare at the first man as he began to chuckle and burst into evil laughter. The second man jumped back in horror while I was trying to break my bonding chains. "You are mine," said the first man with a changed, raspy voice. He then snapped his fingers, and the second man disappeared without a trace. "No! You bastard!" I exclaimed, struggling to break free as he began laughing again. And at that exact moment, I wake up just like I do every time. At home, in my bed, living in the exact same hell I have been living in for the past 13 years.
This has been the prologue from The Snake in the Rose by Abby Matthies. Tune into the next video for Chapter 1. Thank you for listening.